In the beginning, God did not create the heavens and the earth. That's just ridiculous. Vincent did. One of the greatest misconceptions in the world of organized and unorganized religion is that of God, a supreme being, omnipotent, and the creator of all. It is believed that God is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega of everything. A misconception of which God is extremely flattered by. He told me so over a couple of beers the other night. Another misconception: God's name isn't really God. We had a good laugh over that one. God has an incredibly good sense of humor, I'll have you know that. It tends to lean towards the self-deprecating, actually. His real name, though, is Frank. The story goes that back when Frank was being more hands-on with humanity, a guy named Louis Bonderman, Moses' third cousin, twice removed, was selling sandals to the Jews. The Jews, of course, weren't exactly buying because Louis simply refused to negotiate on the price. Now, at this time, about 2360 BC, just a few years before Moses would lead the Israelites out of Egypt, humanity sporadically knew of, but was reluctant to be accepting of His Holy Frankness. Frank, the argument went, wasn't a befitting name of a deity. And deities those days had really cool names, like Meskenet and Ra-Horkati, or something. Back to Louis Bonderman, though. He had a little shack, a nice little setup, along the hillside of the Egyptian highlands, just northwest of the Nile, and he made and sold sandals to the Jews. The Egyptians, by the way, got their sandals from the Foot Locker down the block. One day, Frank came and visited Louis's sandal shack. Louis greeted Frank timidly. It wasn't every day a modern deity visited your sandal shop, after all. When I chatted with Frank over beers the other night, I got the distinct impression that he was a fairly easygoing, omnipotent deity. I went ahead and mentioned this observation, and, well, he chuckled, saying that barring Vincent, he was all-powerful. In other words, why in the hell not be easygoing? Interestingly, why in the hell was Frank's phrase, not mine? I say all of this to emphasize the fact that when Frank strikes up a conversation with you, you get sucked into it, because he is, in a word, affable. Back in 2360 BC, Louis was drawn in by Frank's affability and quickly found himself detailing his troubles with the Jews and their trademark stinginess. They'd rather walk 10 miles through the burning sand than buy a pair of sandals 10% above market price. What happened to supply and demand? This is what I want to know. Frank sympathized with Louis and, in his infinite wisdom, bestowed upon Louis's sandal shack the divine gift of the very first celebrity endorsement. If they're good enough for Frank, they're good enough for you. Forget the land of milk and honey. Frank has commanded the children of Israel to relocate to the land of milk, honey, and Louis's sandal shack. Frank wears sandals by Bonderman. As happy as Louis was because of this remarkably good fortune, he couldn't help but notice that the Jews weren't exactly lining up outside his shack. After months of literally hemorrhaging cash over the Frank endorsements, Louis put a halt to the campaign. It just wasn't working. After another few months of market research full of demographics, data, and lattes, Louis eventually concluded that the Jews simply had no idea who the hell Frank was. Who the hell being my words here. At this point, Louis came up with the name God, restarted the endorsement campaign, and immediately sold out his entire stock of open-toed, ankle-laced sandals. The rest, as they say, well, that's history.